My parents gave the $75,000 that my grandfather left me for college to my sister. Now karma is hitting them hard. I, an 18-year-old female, am going through a very difficult time in my life. Not that I had an easy life before. I've always had a hard life, thanks to my narcissistic parents and their golden child. I have an older sister, Mandy, who is 24. She is the problem in my life. From my earliest childhood memories, my parents have been biased towards Mandy. Thanks to them, I never had a happy childhood. My sister wasn't a bully, I would say, but she was cunning and opportunistic. She never missed a chance to exploit our parents' feelings and get what she wanted. Well, I don't blame her. My parents raised her that way. She's the firstborn, so she holds a special place in their hearts. But I'm their child too. I know many parents have a favorite child, which is fine as long as it doesn't make the other one feel unwanted. That's what my parents did. They made my life miserable. I felt like a spare part in the house. I mostly wore my sister's hand-me-downs because they were too new to throw away. I played with my sister's toys because, again, why should they spend money on new toys when my sisters were still in good condition? I remember only getting a new dress for Christmas, and that was only because they didn't want to look bad in front of Grandpa and other guests. So, to avoid being judged by friends and relatives, I used to get a set of dresses, shoes, and other accessories at Christmas, while my sister got as many as she wanted. If I ever complained, Mom would say, "Don't be impatient, your turn will come next year." As a child, I bought into her logic, but when I really started to understand the situation, I made a fuss about it. They would either tell me we were too poor to buy new clothes for me, or they would punish me for my behavior. I don't remember Mom ever asking me what I wanted for dinner or cooking my favorite food. It was always about my sister. Whether it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, or any other occasion, the menu was according to my sister's tastes. Once, I rebelled against it, refused to eat the food, and left the table. They punished me and left me without food until I apologized to everyone and washed the dishes for the whole week. Oh, it's so exhausting to narrate my sad stories, but that's how things are. And do you know why my parents, especially my mom, do this to me? It's because of her sister. My mom suffered at the hands of narcissistic parents, so she made sure to become one herself. Do you see the irony? Mom is the oldest of her two sisters. She says her parents pampered the youngest and spoiled her a lot. Mom suffered from her parents' biases, so she decided not to pamper the younger one but the oldest. I feel like Mom sees herself in my sister and treats her the way she wanted to be treated in her childhood. Do you understand that kind of feeling? By the time I finished elementary school, I had become so resentful of my parents and my sister that I started spending my summers with my grandfather on my father's side. He was the only one who truly loved me. Grandpa didn't get along very well with my mom. I think he could see through her absurd behavior. Maybe that's why he always supported me. The year I finished elementary school, Grandpa invited me to stay with him on his farm. I felt so relieved. I had never felt so free and relaxed. Grandpa got me everything I asked for. I feel guilty saying this, but I totally exploited his love. I asked for everything I couldn't get at home. Dresses, Barbies, dollhouses, video games, and everything I used to wish for, but my parents wouldn't buy me. I loved spending time with him on his farm in the middle of nature. He had a poultry farm and a small stable with 4 or 5 horses. He spent his days with them. Life was so much fun in those days. I never wanted to go home. When it came time for high school, I insisted on enrolling in a school near Grandpa's farm so I could stay with him. My parents were more than happy to get rid of me. So, from the first year of high school, I stayed with my grandfather. It was necessary for both of us. He was getting old and needed someone to help him, and I needed an escape from my toxic family. I was in my penultimate year of high school when my grandfather fell ill. Maybe he knew his end was near, so he called everyone and revealed his will. He gave his farm and stable to 2 of my uncles. He gave $150,000 in cash savings to my dad, and $75,000 of that was for me, for my college education. He made me promise that I would complete my university education. Mom complained because others received properties and a farm, while Dad only got a few bills. Grandpa reminded her that Dad had already taken his share of the property and sold it to pay off his debts and start a business. Just as I was starting my final year of high school, Grandpa passed away. It was the saddest day of my life. Now I have no one to turn to. I had to go back to my parents. It wasn't pleasant. I hated it, and so did they. As the day of my graduation approached, I asked my parents for my $75,000 that my grandfather had left me. I needed to fill out college applications, and that's when the problems started. Whenever I asked about my money or mentioned college, they would make strange faces and avoid the conversation. When I lost my patience, I confronted them and asked, "What's going on? Where's my money?" That's when she said they had given that money to my sister for her business. What the hell? That money was supposed to be for my college. They said it wasn't a big deal. I could wait a year because I was still too young to go to college. I said, "Hello, how can I be too young for college when my classmates who are the same age are being admitted?" When they couldn't reason with me, they begged me to give them a year to pay for my college tuition. I said, "Why can't the golden child wait a year to start her business? I can't afford to lose a year. What do you think I should do from here? Do I have a chance of getting that money back?" Update 1. A lot has happened in the last few months. My parents asked me to wait another year. I didn't agree and pressed them for the money. They got angry with me and called me selfish and evil. They're manipulating the situation. On top of this, my sister Mandy has started a campaign to portray me as the villain of the story. I lost my temper when my cousin told me that Mandy was telling everyone that I was jealous of her business and wanted money from her. I told Mom that if they didn't give me my money, I was going to tell everyone that they went against Grandpa's will and gave my college fund to their useless daughter. Mom got furious and said, "Do you want to go to that level? Better start paying rent and buy your own food. Calculate the money we've given you over 18 years and we'll be even." I reacted, "What the hell? You're still supporting your 24-year-old daughter who's divorced and has a child, and here you are being so mean and not giving me my money. I've always gotten good grades, but they've never been proud of me, while their golden daughter has brought them shame, and yet they're still supporting her." I know I haven't told you much about my sister. While I was living with Grandpa, my sister got pregnant by her boyfriend. When she found out, it was already too late to get rid of it. She had to inform my parents. They were disappointed, but there was hardly anything they could do about it. Mom, being a conservative Christian, married her off to her boyfriend. Neither of them wanted to get married, but Mandy had to because Mom didn't give her any other choice. Her boyfriend was a slacker. He never wanted to get married or take responsibility for the child. But my parents tracked him down. After the baby, he abandoned my sister and her child. My parents tried to catch him, but he had proof that my sister was mentally abusing him. He sought a divorce on these grounds. My parents had to bring her back home. They have been taking care of Mandy and her child since Grandpa passed away. When I returned home, I found out that it was Mom who was raising the child because my sister was often away. Sometimes Dad would get furious with Mandy for leaving her child for Mom to take care of. Mom would rush to her defense, saying that Mandy was busy looking for a job for herself, which is why she had to go out. That's not true. I saw her so many times hanging around nearby cafes and parks with guys. She's a school dropout, so she's having trouble finding a decent one. Could I care less? When she couldn't get a job, she insisted that Mom give her money to start her own business. Despite all this, my parents continued to support her. They gave her the money without even asking me. Until I posted here, I had no idea what options I had to get my money back, except asking them. So, the next time I asked for the money and they resisted, I said I was going to sue them for breaching Grandpa's will. Their faces turned pale. They understood that I was no longer the girl they could exploit. After returning from Grandpa's house, I had already started standing up to them regarding their exploitation. And when I told them I was going to sue them for money, they lost their temper. It was incredible to them. I was no longer the naive and vulnerable girl. Mom pulled out a notepad and scribbled down the monthly expenses they had spent on me. I mean, that woman literally put a quarter of the expenses in my name, and then school tuition and the Christmas dress. I was stunned as she wrote it down, and at the end she said, "Forget the $75,000. You owe us $200,000. Pay up before asking for your damn $75,000. I had a heated argument with Mom and then left the house. After walking for an hour, I took a bus to Grandpa's house, where my uncle now lived. I asked for Grandpa's journal and took the number of his lawyer. I called him and explained the situation. I asked if he could help me. He assured me that I had a right to the $75,000 that Grandpa left me, and that it was his responsibility to ensure everyone received according to the will. He said he would send an official notice to my parents to give me the money, and if they didn't comply, I could sue them. That's a huge relief. The notice will arrive in a week. I'm happy to receive help, but I'm equally worried about my parents' reaction to receiving the notice. God knows what they're going to do to me. Update 2. This is going to be a small update. I just wanted to let you know that you were all right in saying that my parents would kick me out. I was mentally prepared for the inevitable. I talked to my friend about sharing an apartment with her. I took a part-time job at a coffee shop. The pay is very low, but they let me take home some leftover food when it closes. I had already packed my things a day before the notice arrived. As expected, my mom kicked me out when she received the lawyer's notice. She insulted me and threw my things out of the house. I made the mistake of not leaving earlier and letting them enjoy throwing me out. She said I was like a snake they had been feeding in our backyard because I lived and survived on their money while planning to bite and betray them. I shouted that they left me no choice. I can't risk my life and career for their narcissism. The lawyer had given my parents a month to respond to the notice. They're about to miss the deadline. I think they're not taking it seriously because Mandy called and insulted me for doing this to the family. She said that my parents wouldn't give me a cent, and that I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't have the money to sue them. I listened quietly, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I hung up on her. I told my lawyer about it, and he said we could definitely sue if they didn't respond by next week. Update 3. I suffered severe backlash from my parents for suing them. I didn't actually want to press criminal charges against them, but they left me no choice. I thought the lawyer's notice would do the job, but they didn't respond to the lawyer's demand. I went home to tell them they better comply with Grandpa's will, or I would have to go the legal route. They all ganged up on me, insulting me. My mom even threw things at me. I had left some non-essential items at home thinking I would pick them up later. Mom took them out of my closet and tore them up in front of me to hurt me. I was there to settle the matter without legal trouble, but it seems they wanted a fight. I went back and told my lawyer to file charges against them, which he gladly did. When they received the court order, they panicked. Dad called me and said we could sort out family matters between us. There was no need for a legal battle. Really? So I went home to settle family matters, but they were the ones who became hostile towards me and left me no choice. Now the ship has sailed, and they have to follow a legal path. I'm not willing to compromise. During the court hearings, Dad was ordered to pay $75,000 according to Grandpa's will, but Dad gave up and showed his bank statement that he didn't have that much money. He said he would pay $10,000 a month, but my lawyer argued that I needed that money for college tuition, and $10,000 a month wouldn't be enough. The lawyer ordered that Dad would have to pay for my tuition and other necessities like room and board up to a minimum of $75,000. If my expenses exceeded that, I'd be on my own, and if my expenses didn't reach $75,000, Dad would have to pay the remaining amount. I didn't like the idea of continuing to depend on him for money, but I had no other choice. Actually, Dad doesn't have $75,000 to give me all at once. I was resistant to this compromise, but Dad pleaded with tearful eyes and promised not to default. So I accepted, but I told him that if he or Mom caused any problems with this in the future, I would sue them again. And this time, I would demand compensation for mental anguish. He agreed. Meanwhile, Mom and Mandy were working behind my back. Mandy has been telling everyone that I gave my parents high blood pressure and embarrassed the family by taking them to court. Well, here's the irony. There was no shame when she got pregnant. But I brought shame simply by asking for my own money. You know what? I don't care anymore. They labeled me as the black sheep, and I guess I'm now happy being one. Update 4. I know it took me a long time to update. I was busy adapting to my new life at university. I graduated high school with top honors. I sent graduation invitations to my parents, knowing they wouldn't show up. Surprisingly, Dad did show up. He seemed happy, and for the first time, he said he was proud of me. It took him 18 years and a court case to realize that I was also his daughter and that I also needed love and care. It doesn't matter anymore. I've moved past it. I quit my job at the cafe and moved into the university dorms. The money I receive from Dad covers university tuition, room, and board. Beyond that, I'm on my own. I got a part-time job near the university campus. I'm also tutoring math to my classmates for some extra cash. I'm good at math. Dad has been sending the money as ordered by the court. Some of you asked about my relationship with Dad and where he was all this time when Mom was being cruel to me. So, here it is. Dad didn't exist for me. Dad saw everything wrong that was happening to me, but chose to look the other way. He ignored my problems and never questioned Mom about her behavior. He did whatever Mom said. In fact, he thought Mom made good decisions by using my sister's clothes for me because apparently, Mom was saving his money during my childhood. I've seen Dad struggle financially, So any opportunity to save a penny, he was ready for it. So he always supported Mom. I'm also not sure how he reacted to Mandy's unexpected pregnancy. All I know is through cousins and relatives. Mandy's wedding was done so discreetly that no one knew when it happened, not even me. As I said, I was living with my grandfather at that time and didn't care about what was happening at home. If I have to update on my current situation, I couldn't be happier. I'm living my dream life, attending university and getting good grades. My relationship with Dad has improved since the court incident. Mom and Mandy kept talking badly about me, defaming me, making me out to be the villain, but soon they had their own problems to deal with. Mandy wasn't capable of managing a business, as you might imagine, and it didn't take long before my $75,000 were gone. She had a pet shop, and it was more than obvious that someone like her couldn't manage it well. I even think she doesn't like animals very much, so her choice was a bit surreal. Another problem she had was that one day the police stopped her for a check, and she started arguing with them. The result was that she ended up spending a few hours in jail because she said many things to the officer, none of them nice. Mom tried to advocate for her, but Dad gave Mom an ultimatum: Mandy or Dad. Mom doesn't work, so she obviously chose Dad and told Mandy to get a job and move out. Mandy has been using her son to emotionally manipulate Dad into letting her stay in the house, and she had succeeded until he saw how she wasted his money and the arrest. But now, I heard that Dad no longer believes her lies and kicked her out. She's living with a friend, but God knows how long that will last. She hasn't contacted me for help. Today, before writing this update, I was reading my initial post, and it made me cry. I was in such a bad situation back then. I had just lost my support system, my grandfather. My parents stripped me of my inheritance from my grandfather. I was trapped in my own house by my narcissistic parents and was without a college education. There was so much uncertainty about my future. All I could see was darkness and helplessness. But a big thank you to this community for all the support. I still miss my grandfather. Thanks to him, I'm in college today. He's my guardian angel. I know he's blessing me from wherever he is now. Update 5. I don't know how I didn't see this coming, but everything went back a bit to how it was before. After a while I was enjoying university, problems started. My father stopped paying the agreed amount, so we went back to court. Luckily, I already had some money saved up from my part-time job and my math tutoring, so for now, I'm holding on. I hope it lasts me at least until Dad starts paying what he still owes me again. When a few days passed, and the university told me my tuition was late, I had to use my savings. Then I called my father, with whom I had a better relationship lately. In the conversation, he told me that it had become difficult to pay all my expenses lately because my sister was living with them again. It seems that staying with her friend didn't work out and she had to come back. I also realized, through all this and my father's conversation, that he's back to doing whatever my mom says. I thought we had moved past that, but here we are again, as if nothing had happened. I can't believe my father is trusting my mother again after all she's done and continues to do to me. My mother hasn't stopped posting on social media about the stress I've caused the family, something my sister has also been doing. They even went so far as to say that I caused my grandfather's death, because living with him made him sick since he was an old man and didn't have the energy to take care of a child like me. I've been talking to the lawyer, and he thinks we can go back to court. The difference is that now we're also going to sue for defamation and mistreatment. And honestly, I hope that costs them much more than the initial $75,000. Update 6. I know many like stories with a happy ending, and this one isn't. At least not for my family. For me, it's the best ending I could get. The case went back to court, and a lawsuit was filed for the remaining $75,000. My father can't pay it, so the judge ordered the foreclosure of the house they live in. They'll soon have to move out because the sale will be used to pay what they owe me, plus some extra expenses for interest. I think the total amount is $87,000. But the matter isn't over yet because after that came the defamation lawsuit, and that will be another $25,000. Including all the mistreatment I've received over the years, the things my mom destroyed when I went to collect them from the house, and what happened afterward. And with this new trial, my mother went even crazier. I know it's hard to believe because she was already competing in the Olympics in the insanity discipline, but this requires a new competition just for her. She came one day to my university to talk and was accompanied by my sister. She started arguing in a somewhat loud tone, but soon escalated to a full-blown shouting match, and campus security had to help. When the two security guards arrived, she escalated even more and became aggressive. First, she tried to hit me, but one of the security guards grabbed her, and he got an elbow in the nose from my mother. Then she started kicking and hitting them both, while they still held her, but now deliberately. Finally, the police arrived, and they took her away, spending a few hours at the station. My sister, who witnessed the whole thing, didn't intervene but did accompany her mother to the station. This allowed me to get even more money from the lawsuit and also a restraining order against her. My father and I no longer have any relationship because he chose his wife over his daughter again. But now I have the money to cover my studies, and I might have some left over for when I start living on my own since I'm still working and saving.